that's kind of why we're helping you, understand these steps. It seems like an insurmountable challenge when you look at it and you start thinking about, yeah, I got to spend $35,000 off the bat before I even get started. Like, you're going to spend $35,000 for a couple drawings. That sounds ridiculous, but that's like the very first step in many steps where you're going to spend a lot more money.
The only reason why I ask is if anybody knows about the wet zone process, especially in Hillsborough County, many buildings, if you would never get wet zone, even if you were allowed to get a liquor license, would not. So to me, I would think that you would want to make sure that first and foremost that the building is going to meet the requirements of whatever the zoning is. For instance, you can't be next to a school, you can't be next to a church, and so before you would lay out $35,000 or any amount to design a building that may not actually be used.
So what you're saying is correct, but in order for you to get the zoning approval,
Right.
like just because you and I know the buildings is within 1,000 feet from a school, the zoning administrator that's going to sit down and say, okay, you're telling me your buildings is within 1,000 feet? Great. Tell your architect to give me the site plan of what it's going to look like. Bring it in. I'll look at it, even though it probably is within the right zoning, 1,000 feet like you just said. In order for get them to sign off and for you to tell your investor it's properly zoned, even though you and I know, you have to submit your site plan to the county to get the zoning approval. So your investor's going to say, okay, you told me it's 1,000 feet, it is 1,000 feet, but I need the city to tell me that it is 1,000 feet, even though we all know. In order for the city to sign off on something that you and I already know, the architect has to design the exterior of the building, which is called the site plan. And at that point, you get the zoning approval, even though you know that it's properly zoned.
I apologize, and I don't mean to seem argumentative.
No, that's fine.
The process in Hillsborough County is a little bit different with the way the zoning works, and the only reason why I'm saying that is that you can go down to the city of Tampa and they can tell you that this building, provided you follow X, Y, and Z, the alphabet is required, you will be able to pull off what you want to do here without spending a dollar.
Right.
And then go in and have to meet all the requirements of that building to make the change of use, whether it be parking, whether it be dumpsters, whether it be landscape, what have you.
So yeah, that may be the case, but if you're, hopefully that your investment team would be okay with you telling them that, or hopefully the Hillsborough County will give you some piece of paper that says it's properly zoned without you having to spend a dollar. If that's the case, then that's great. That is just Hillsborough County. That doesn't mean that every county is going to be like that. Go ahead, Kurt.
I think you guys might want to look at it in a little different way. This business is unique. Money has to be spent. If you go down to the zoning and they tell you, yeah, it's zoned properly, you don't tell your guys, yeah, it's zoned properly, and they start to do something, and then it's not zoned properly, who's at fault? You don't have any paperwork to show that. You don't have it. Just because someone tells you it's zoned properly, which has happened plenty of times in Colorado. Even if people own the building, they want to rent them so bad, yeah, it's zoned properly. Put everything in there, spend $50,000, and then as soon as you get the drawing, you get kicked out. But they got the money to get you in there. So you got to do your due diligence about this. You can't listen to other people, and you have to have everything documented. You have to have everything in paperwork form, even if they say, yes, that building is perfect. Can you please give me something that says this building is perfect because I have to show it to somebody else? That's the thoroughness you have to be in this industry. Everything has to be documented. And let me tell you why, because you're going to get out of it plenty of times.
So let me get another example. And again, we're just trying to give you what we think you should do. One of our buildings it's properly zoned, but it's in called mixed zoning. So you could talk to and I can give you an example. You can talk to the person, they can say, yes, it's properly zoned. Actually, this literally happened. That's why we had to write that letter. Because the building was properly zoned, but yet it was zoned as, let's call it was zoned in zone 1. But even though it was zone 1, it was also a part of zone 2. And because it was zone 1 and 2, it was called mixed zoning. So then Seth had to write a letter about odor mitigation waste disposal. And that is because the building sat on a particular street, and even though it was within 1,000 feet from a school,
It was further than that, yeah.
it was further than 1,000 feet from a school. It was less than 500 feet from a residence. Therefore, it was classified as mixed zoning. And then we wrote this letter, and therefore she approved it. She only really approved it, and it was at the discretion of the zoning administrator. And that's why I said you kind of need to know the zoning administrators and get a good architect. When we went down there and I gave the paperwork to the zoning administrator, she was able to see our architect's logo, and she was like, "Oh yeah, Dan is always bringing work down here." So, not that what you're saying isn't right, because you may be correct, but because it's marijuana related, they're going to come up with all these different little things to prevent specific things of why making zoning more difficult. And the example that I gave you, the landlord told us it was properly zoned, and it is properly zoned, but he did not tell us it is also mixed zone. In fact, when we first went down there and showed her the paperwork, and she literally signed on it, when we went back to make some minor modifications, she then said, "Oh, it's mixed zoned." So you're working with I don't want to say that, but you're working with certain employees. So you need to be cognitive of that. Just because they tell you it's mixed zoned, it's properly zoned, you need to get it documented. You just need to get it documented.
Because it's new, they're just
Because
gonna
it's
find
new.
every way they can to
Absolutely.
knock
Yeah,
you out of the
they're not trying
box
to
and
make it
take
easy
your
on you.
money and
Absolutely.
say, never mind. you
And
live."
I'll be able to bring up a letter that I can show you, like literally, because we want to show y'all real life examples of exactly literally we thought it was properly zoned, and then it was like it's mixed zone. We kind of panicked a little bit, but it worked out. Yes, sir.
So pretty much, we're gonna be sinking, 35,000+ into this before industrial digest, before we apply, when there's not even guarantee getting, passing the application.
It depends on the type of investor that you want. If I had a whole bunch of money, I would just give it to you because I believe in what you're trying to do. But you're going to have a lot of investors. They're going to hesitate. They're not going to move until you got to show some sweat in the game. Like you got to show that you're serious. Call me back when you've spent $35,000 on some drawings. If you can't even spend $30,000 on your own money, then why should somebody invest in you? That is what most of these investors are trying to get into the industry that aren't really trying to do the work that you're trying to get in. You're gonna have to show some sweat in the game. And yes, I'm using the number that we've got multiple bids on architects. I'm just giving you things that we have seen. If you know an architect in the city, he can probably get some good volume going if he gives people deals on architect drawings for marijuana businesses.
Can you speak about cultivating though? It'd be a lot easier if you were opening a
Dispensary.
Yeah.
dispensary.
Easy and new industry is different. So yes, it would be a lot easier, but if I'm an architect and all of you all want me to do y'all drawings, aren't I going to increase my price for everybody who wants to do a marijuana activity?
Yep.
So easy, it's not about easy. Yes, if I'm an architect, I would assume making a drawing for a dispensary, yes, it's significantly easier than a cultivation center. But that doesn't mean that the price of a dentist's office is $10,000 and now the price of a dispensary is $20,000 because you are trying to do a marijuana dispensary and you need it. You got to have it because you got to give it to the zoning people in order for you to kind of get rock and roll. So in summary, the most important person on that first list is the architect. Yes, sir.
Love what you're giving us, Story. We kind of diverted just within this first section. I know time is precious to us all. You think we can just hit the other points? And
Yeah. Yes, sir. So, yes, sir. So the zoning process. So when you submit all these drawings, then they're going to go through like a review through different departments. You're going to have a fire review, a structural review. So if you're putting lights on the ceiling of the warehouse, like we're putting lights up here, then you have to have somebody come and go through and make sure it's properly coded. So that's the zoning piece. The development of operating procedures. You're going to have waste disposal processes. You're going to have odor mitigation, landscape maintenance. This is pretty interesting. So, my man here, when you go turn in the site plan to get proof that it's zoning, they may come back and say, great, it's properly zoned, but I need your architect to go put these specific type of plants on the landscape of the building, just because you need to have these type of plants.
So what's he mean by that is like, they don't want some, if you have a dispensary next to a thriving business, they don't want that business to have anything to do with you, they make you put up some type of shrubbery to separate. And shrubbery is usually really expensive because they want you to put up full-grown trees, it's ridiculous. But it costs money to play this game, it's just that, and it's basically, it feels like they're throwing money away till you actually get in the building and get to see some type of revenue, but honestly, it's a crapshoot. It really is, you just gotta have a thorough plan, a thorough group of people, and know where you're headed.
And that is, they actually make you do a landscape agreement. That's how they call it, a landscape maintenance agreement. We got, I don't know what type of plants they were, but they're specific plants that you have to put out. So then I have, we have legal agreements, obviously, your corporate structure. Some people do promissory notes. So like if you are out, if you want to invest in Florida and you live in Kentucky, and once they roll out the regulations, if they say it's only for Florida-based residents, well, there's certain things that you can do to get outside there could be certain things that you can do to get outside investors to invest in your Florida business by doing certain type of promissory notes. They're gonna, the city is gonna, or the zoning folks, the approval committee is going to want you to show bylaws, a marijuana lease agreement. You're gonna have to show security and alarm contracts